This week, you're going to do two things that seem to contradict each other, but in rhetoric, that's what we spend a lot of time doing. So the first thing is you're going to finish revising and drafting your Project 3 for me and for my feedback. So you're still there working with counter-arguments, the things you don't believe in, the positions that would be reasonable challenges to the position you're going to argue in Project 4. But then you're going to pivot from that position and then start taking the position that you're going to argue. And that means that in addition to being that honest researcher presenting the opposition's claims, you need to start thinking about how you'll frame your claim in the way that's most likely to prepare your reader to accept what you want them to accept, ultimately. You've got some examples this week, two very good and distinct examples of framing different kinds of issues. We're going to look at narrative framing, and we're also going to look at how someone can set up a potentially inflammatory or controversial issue that a lot of people don't want to talk about because they have a lot of fear or a lot of shame dedicated to it. So I want you, as you're reading and listening this week, to be paying attention to the different strategies that those authors use in order to get you ready to accept ultimately what they hope you will come away with. The discussion forums will ask you to deal with that, and then your journals will also ask you to pay attention to the rhetoric involved in the writing. As you work through this week, you've got some guides into what the difference between an introduction and a conclusion and the body of your paper should be, and also just a little bit more on the style and manner of introducing your argument and the kinds of things we might be looking for in the first 2 pages. Beginning with next week, you'll be drafting and submitting and reviewing all of your arguments, just sticking with the things you have to say. While we make that shift, I want you to start from the very beginning thinking about how you'll introduce it, how you'll bring that argument to a potentially hostile or maybe a potentially friendly or maybe a potentially uninformed audience. You'll use the strategy based on who you believe you're talking to. Remember, audience and purpose dictate everything we do in rhetoric. So take a look at all of the materials this week. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with, and please, again, don't hesitate to email me if you have any questions.